Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're breaking down the absolute seismic shift happening over at Meta, and honestly, what it means for the future of work and tech. If you've been tracking the headlines, you already know big tech is going through a massive restructuring right now. But look beyond those headlines, and there's a wild, slightly unsettling story about failed investments, major strategic pivots, and the rapid rise of artificial intelligence. We're going to dig right into the hard data and internal employee sentiments to see exactly how a company goes from trying to build a digital universe to heavily automating its own workforce. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the Meta labor crisis, then look into the Metaverse money pit, what employees are calling 28 days of hell, training your AI replacement, finding true social gravity, and finally, a return to connection. Let's dive right in. Section 1. The Meta labor crisis. Let's take a look at the sheer scale of this restructuring. Starting this May, the data shows Meta is slashing roughly 8,000 jobs across its global workforce. And look, this isn't just a minor trim to balance the books. We're talking about a massive reduction that's completely reshaping multiple departments, and of course, affecting thousands of real lives. To really put that number into perspective, that 8,000 represents a staggering 10% of their entire employee base just let go in a single sweep. Imagine that for a second. Literally 1 out of every 10 people in your office suddenly packing up their desks. It completely upends the operational reality of the entire company. And the crazy part is this isn't an isolated event. If we combine this with the sweeping layoffs from 2022 and 2023, that's 37,000 people removed from the payroll in just 4 years. Think about that. That's essentially the population of a small city, entirely wiped from the org chart. But hold on, because the broader context here is really interesting. Back in 2020, Meta had 59,000 employees. Then, during this wild pandemic hiring spree, they ballooned up to 86,000 by 2022. So, despite letting 37,000 people go, their projected headcount for the end of 2025 is still around 79,000. It kind of shows us that this whole crisis, it's largely just a massive correction of their own overhiring. They're still going to be net positive by about 20,000 employees compared to just a few years ago.
Okay, moving to Section 2. The Metaverse money pit. Billions spent, questionable results. Now, critics have pointed out a pretty deep irony with Meta's VR ambitions. After pouring an absolutely astronomical amount of capital into the metaverse, hundreds of billions of dollars, some industry observers actually joke that the final product essentially feels like a clunkier version of the Nintendo Wii. It just really lacked the polish and engagement you'd expect from that level of investment.
The fundamental problem is pretty clear here. Efforts like Horizon Worlds felt more like fragmented, disconnected toolsets that lacked a clear identity, rather than a cohesive MMO world with actual depth and progression. Basically, Meta tried to build a massive-scale platform right out of the gate, before taking the time to give people a compelling, cohesive place to actually want to exist in.
Let's move on to Section 3, 28 Days of Hell. We need to talk about the human toll of this constant restructuring.
So this phrase, 28 days of hell, has actually become internal shorthand for the current employee experience over at Meta. According to internal sources, this describes the agonizing month-long wait just to hear about the layoff news. Can you imagine the psychological toll of waking up every single day for 4 weeks, wondering if today's the day your badge stops working? As you'd expect, it's led to an unprecedented drop in workplace morale. The culture there has fundamentally shifted. Insiders argue that this intense hire and fire strategy treats highly paid employees like totally expendable commodities. There's this extreme pressure on the staff that remains, which creates a rather Darwinian environment where those who crack under the pressure are just discarded. It fosters a permanent climate of fear and ambiguity rather than, actual innovation.
Which brings us to Section 4, training your AI replacement. Let's look at this shift from human talent to artificial intelligence.
This is where things take a slightly darker turn. To fuel this new AI frontier, internal reports suggest Meta is actively logging screen activity, tracking mouse movements, clicks, and keystrokes to monitor exactly how human engineers go about solving problems throughout their workday. And that brings us to a pretty chilling realization, right? A question that's spreading quite a bit of panic through the tech industry. Are these employees essentially being paid to train their own replacements? Because all that data harvested from their daily workflows is incredibly valuable for training the exact same AI tools designed to automate software engineering and product management tasks down the line. And the end game of all this tracking? Well, internal discussions point to a highly aggressive target, replacing up to 1/3 of their total human workforce with AI within the next 3 years. Let that sink in for a moment. They aren't just cutting costs here, they're attempting to permanently replace human operational capacity with artificial intelligence.
Let's pivot for Section 5, Finding True Social Gravity. Let's look at a more constructive path forward for VR.
The answer to making VR work actually lies in a concept experts call social gravity. You see, in virtual reality, fancy content and ultra-realistic graphics aren't really what drive retention. It's density. It's that simple knowledge that other real people are consistently present in the exact same digital space. Platforms that succeed do so because of shared moments and interactions that become actual memories. That pull, that innate human desire to return to where the people are, that is social gravity.
So instead of trying to build the entire universe all at once, the strategy really needs to be incremental. First, build a rock-solid social core, a simple place where interaction just works perfectly. Second, foster density to create that social gravity we just talked about. And only then, step 3, do you start layering in complex narratives, identity systems, and MMO-style progression. You absolutely have to prioritize human presence over fragmented features.
Finally, Section 6, a return to connection. Will Meta find its original purpose?
A lot of industry critics predict that as this aggressive pivot to AI faces inevitable backlash, we're probably going to see a major rebranding effort. Observers fully expect an apology tour from leadership in the next 3 to 5 years, likely claiming that, Meta was always about people and connections first, and somewhere along the way we lost sight of that, but we're going to work hard to make things right. Which leads us with this final, provocative thought. When that inevitable corporate apology happens, will it be genuine? Will Meta actually go back to building tools focused on true social gravity and human connection? Or is this ruthless pivot to AI just going to result in another disconnected, empty frontier, one built not for people, but entirely by and for the algorithms that replace them? It's a huge question, and the answer is going to define not just the future of the internet, but the future of work itself. Thank you for joining me for this explainer. I hope it gave you a really clear, structured look into the forces shaping big tech today.